Pull-ups, where do you start? How do you begin? How do you get better at them? And what are some advanced variations you can do if you are really good at them? We are gonna be covering everything in today's video and more. You're gonna see some funky variations, you're gonna see some basic variations, and I'm also gonna be showing you how to improve your pull-ups or even get your first ever pull-up. So come follow along on today's video. Okay, so first up, what do I mean by pull-up? Now, there's a few different ways you can do pull-ups. You can do pull-ups with an underhand grip, you can do them with an overhand grip, neutral grip, semi-pronated, all that kind of stuff in between. Like here, we can always do like twisting, rotating grip kind of pull-ups, okay? For the context of today's video, when we talk about pull-ups, we're gonna be talking about a neutral grip or a hammer grip when we're doing pull-ups. Now, probably for another time where I'll talk about exactly why that's one of my favorites, but the short answer is if you want better longevity in your shoulders, your elbows, if you want better aesthetics, and you want to improve strength that's gonna transfer onto a lot of sports, generally speaking, the neutral grip pull-up is gonna be your best option in the long run. So we're gonna cover everything you need to know about that, progressions, regressions, all that kind of stuff in today's video. Just to give you a couple of reps to show you what it looks like. So we're in that neutral grip position. You can obviously adjust these bars, but your setup might be a little bit more fixed. You might not be able to adjust those. And all we're gonna do from there, I like to think straight body position, almost like a moving plank. Drive those elbows down towards your rib cage, chin goes over the bar, control that depth all the way down, just trying to keep those shoulders away from the ears, so we're not gonna go too lax down the bottom, and then repeat. I don't mind in those, to be fair, if some people wanna go more cross-legged or even have that behind knee position. We can argue there's a benefit to that because we alter kind of like the torso angle and we're pulling it a little bit of a different angle, but we're keeping today's video quite basic and we're just showing how you can get to doing your first ever pull-up. Before we do, I'm gonna show some really basic variations, okay? So if you're a complete beginner, this is what I would do. So if you're a complete beginner, ring pull-ups are probably my favorite place to start you. Obviously, it depends on where you're at right now, but generally speaking, this is a really good place for most people to start. If you don't have rings, I'm gonna show you another option in just a minute, okay? But go with me here. So with the rings, all we're gonna do is start with them set up at about shoulders height. From here, we're gonna have that with the thumbs. I like thumbs tucked into the armpits as your starting point. From there, as I said, really, really basic variation, okay? If you're looking for something a little bit more advanced or something really, really hard, you can scroll to the end of the video if you want to, but if you're a coach and you wanna learn the basics, or if you're a complete beginner, this is what we need to be paying attention to. So we're right here, and all we're gonna be doing is lowering vertically down towards the floor. At this point, trying to use your legs as little as you possibly can, and then all the way up, drive those elbows down, thumbs come back into the armpits. So we're using those legs as a bit of assistance as we're coming up. Obviously, the weaker that you are, the more you can pretty much just squat that, right? But obviously, the stronger that you get, the more you actively need to rely on those arms actually pulling you up into position. If you get really good in that position, what you can then try is an eccentric only version of them. So let's imagine you've spent a period of time where we've just worked together, we've gradually built up to doing 6 full reps like that. You managed to take most of your weight, or as much weight as you actively can, through your arms. You'll then go to an eccentric variation. So here, what we're now doing, again, we might build confidence up here as well. So we're here, we're keeping that nice close position with the thumbs into the armpits. We're then isometrically holding, we're bringing our knees up, we're lowering down as controlled and as slow as we can, and then just stand up and reset, okay? So each one we're breaking down. So we're here, we're knees up, we're control, and we're resetting again, okay? So we're breaking that down. Now we might do that taking 4, 5 seconds to lower down. We might just be more like letting go and just showing some control on the way down. But it's a progression from the previous variation. So we're not like jumping to something that's really hard. We're not having to jump up to the full pull-up bar. We're not jumping yet to using bands or anything like that. We're just getting you comfortable with your own body weight. So that's where I would start you. We'd use rings, and then we'd go to maybe an eccentric variation. If you don't have rings, this is what we'll do instead. I will show you quickly. Just bear with me. I'm just going to change the setup. So if you don't have access to rings, you can use a bar in a rack. You can also use a Smith machine for this as well. Now, for some people, this can be a slightly better option because obviously it's more stable. So if you're someone that would be a little bit kind of freaked out by the instability of these, especially with the eccentric variation, this can be a good option. However, because with this variation, we're having to use an underhand grip or an overhand grip, it's not going to transfer as well onto that neutral grip pull-up that we're trying to work up towards. But if you're trying to work towards an underhand grip or overhand grip, this will have a little bit better transfer, okay? But same idea with this one with the eccentric variation. So we're going here, we're chin over the bar, we're stabilizing in that position, that isometric, we're pulling our knees up, lowering down. As you can see, that's a lot more stable. And then we're just standing up to reset. So we're here, we're down, we're controlling, reset, and go again. Obviously, we can also do the first variation. We can literally just be there and pull ourselves up, okay? One thing I'm gonna say here is that you're typically seeing like a personal training manual that the progression for a pull-up is like a lat pull down, or even sometimes you might see like a kneeling lat pull down. Arguably, it does have a little bit better transfer than a regular lat pull down. Generally speaking, I don't see a huge transfer to be able to do a full pull-up from actually doing any kind of lat pull down or cable pull down variation. So that's why I prefer to help you master your own body weights by doing regressions like what we're just showing you right now, rather than getting strong on the cables and then trying to do a full pull-up. It very rarely happens. We need to have some kind of owning the body weight kind of progression to actually get you there in the end, okay? So I would rather start you here. There's obviously a time and place for those cable variations, those lat pull downs, pull down machines, all that kind of stuff, and it's gonna help, but it's gonna be more like your assistance work in trying to improve your pull-ups than something like this, which will have a better transfer because you are owning your own body weight. So once you've developed a foundational level of strength, then the next step, or the next logical step, is to do band-assisted variations. Now, I really like band-assisted variations because it's really easy to progress. Once you're on a band-assisted variation, then we can actually progress you quite fast because it's simply a case of day one, you use a band that assists you more. Day 20, you use a band, depending on your rate of progression, you use a band that assists you a little bit less and less and less and less over time, i.e. a thinner band over time, and then eventually you're onto body weight, right? We encourage progression gradually over time. Now, there's a few different ways you can set up your band. I have my preferences and what I do with my clients, and I'll give you kind of my take on those as well. So if you're already at this level with the confidence to use a resistance band, being able to get up on the bar, then this is how to progress, okay? So with this variation here, this is option one in terms of how to set up a band-assisted variation. I quite like this. It's not my favorite though, okay? So all we've done here is we've just put a band across and kind of linked it to the J hooks. What we have with this variation, or the downside, is that there's quite a fast unloading, right? So at the top, there's far less assistance than there is at the bottom, okay? And that's why I personally prefer more of like a hanging method off the bar, but this I do sometimes use as well, okay? This can also give people a little bit more confidence because there's a couple of ways you can do these. Now, you can set the band up higher and you can have your knees on it, or you can set the band up a little bit lower and have your legs on it, or your feet on it. I prefer to have your feet on it because for me, just through what I've seen, there's an easier progression, there's a better transfer to being able to do the full variations, okay? So all we're gonna do here is simply stand on the band, nice straight body position. I like to start in a box as well, so that band comes just in front of the box. Nice stretch position at the bottom, drive those elbows down, chin over the bar, squeeze those shoulder blades down, and then release back down to the bottom. So nice, simple variation there. Obviously, as you step off, you've got to watch that the band doesn't ping back up as well, okay? And if you want to make these even easier, as I said, it's really simple. Just start with a thicker band, okay? So you might start with like a big, thick black band, and then you might go down to say like a purple band or an orange band. You might then go down to even like a yellow band or something like that. I will show you that just so you see what I mean. Okay, so simple progression. You might start off here, and then as you get a little bit stronger, you might go there. And as you get even stronger, you might go there, okay? Simple progression. Obviously, with the band that offers less resistance, that's harder. You're using more of your body weight when you get to the top position. So that's an easy way to progress these with band assistance. So this is the band setup that I personally prefer. It's just simply thrown over a band and just looping it through, and then we go through your knees or we go over your foot. I prefer this a little bit more for most people, mostly because the unloading is a little bit slower and it's more of a constant resistance as we get to the top. Okay, I won't go too much into the details, but with this, all we're gonna do is just band over the knee, here, lock that same position, and we're away. Okay, so really easy setup, and especially if you don't have a rack with like J hooks like this, you can do it anywhere. So especially when it comes to like my online coaching clients, I'm not really going to show you a video of how to set up your assisted pull-ups using a couple of J hooks, because you might not be able to get that at a gym. Whereas your gym might have more something like a cable system with some pull-up handles in, so you can easily throw it over there, or even in a Smith machine or something like that. So it's a lot more applicable to kind of the real world environment where you can set it up anywhere. Exactly the same idea with these. As you get stronger over time, you use a band that assists you even less. Now, although progressing your pull-ups with resistance bands is a great option, there is one downside. And that main downside is that the way a resistance band assists you is that when you get to the top, it actually unloads you and it makes it a little bit harder, relatively speaking, whereas it's assisting you more at the bottom. Whereas what actually happens with a pull-up variation is the hardest part is actually the middle. Most people fail right in the middle. So most people can get that first little bit here, or if you push them to the top, they could probably hold it here, but they just can't get from here to here. That's the hardest part. And when you use a resistance band, it doesn't quite cover that. One way we can use to improve that is actually by using isometric holds. So we can use resistance bands to progress you, but we can also throw in there some isometric variations. So as an example, we can perform isometric holds in this position, i.e. hold for say 10, 20, 30 seconds at a time. We can hold at the top, we can hold at the bottom position. We can hold at those joint angles that are hardest for you, and over time, you get stronger at that joint position. We can also use isometric variations and eccentric variations. So your isometric variation is what I've just showed you, where we're not moving, okay? So the joint angle stays the same. There's an isometric muscle contraction. The eccentric variation is where we're just doing the lowering portion of the exercise. So for this, we're gonna jump all the way up to the top, control the lower down, reset, and go again. So getting stronger during the eccentric phase, that lowering down portion, over time will help you get stronger in the concentric, the lifting phase. Your eccentric lowering ability of an exercise tends to be about 20 to 40% stronger than your ability to lift yourself up. And that's why using some eccentric variations over time will help you get stronger as well. So there are two other ways you can progress your pull-ups. Finally, if you can master bodyweight pull-ups, then obviously you want to add load. Now there's a couple of ways you can add load. I personally prefer a dipping belt. You can also add a weighted vest. A weighted vest though is hard to progress in because depends on the style of your weighted vest. You have to take the bits out to reduce the load or add weights in as you get up. Whereas actually when you've got a dipping belt, you can just gradually add the load onto that belt. You can use plates. I quite like to use kettlebells with this because what you can do, especially when you get to some heavier weights, you can simply set it up like I have here. You can have a bench in front of you or like the safety bars like I've got set up right now. And you could just hook it through instead of being kind of a little bit awkward with the plates. And then nice and simple, all you're gonna do is the exact same thing, right? So now you've just got some load. So gradually over time, you've added just a little bit of weight. And then let's say week 1, you've added 2.5 kilos. Week 2, you're on 5 kilos, 7.5 kilos and so on. And then you've got your weighted pull-ups, okay? So exactly the same idea, nice 4-range of motion, nice and deep, and then repeat. And that is how you get to more advanced push-up variations. So we've gone through all your assisted variations and kind of variations of those assisted ones. We've gone into kind of intermediate ones. We've gone on to how to progress them through one of my favorite methods, which is using resistance bands. And then we've gone on to a more advanced variation, which is just to start to add load. Once you add in load, then the world's your oyster. There's a load of different things you can play about with there. You can do, again, isometrics, eccentrics. You can do like 1.5 rep method where you get an extra half rep at the top, extra half rep at the bottom. You can play about with all different kind of set rep schemes with that as well. So there's loads of different things you can do, okay? But wherever you are on your journey right now, whether you are just starting your pull-up journey, you want to build some confidence, or you are a little bit more advanced or somewhere in between, hopefully this video has given you a little bit of advice as to where to get started and how to structure your training to actually make some progress.